Welcome to Film and Page. I'm Dominic, and this is another episode of Road to Dune. So there was an interview with the supervising art director, Tom Brown, of the new Dune film. And it was actually on YouTube. It was a video article. It was a video interview. And I never got around to seeing it. It actually got taken down before I could get to see it. But bits and pieces of it are floating around out there on the internet. And so I'm actually going to do two videos about things that were said in this interview. So the first one is an article by IndieWire where they compare the upcoming Dune film with Lord of the Rings. So this is the article. Dune art director says Villeneuve's films will be up there with Lord of the Rings series. Supervising art director Tom Brown also said that Denis Villeneuve's seminal version is the one that won't be topped. We're still months out from the December 18th release of Denis Villeneuve's Dune, and the filmmaker is currently racing to wrap up post-production on his epic, now fabled adaptation of Frank Herbert's sci-fi tome. In the meantime, details from the below-the-line side of things are trickling out, including, most recently, from the movie's supervising art director Tom Brown. In an interview with Kids First film critics, Brown teased the movie and what audiences can expect from Villeneuve's grand vision. The great thing about this is that it's so realistic. It's not like anything they've seen before, Brown said of the film's spacecraft. The attitude that Denis and production designer Patrice Vermey took was, what would happen if these things could actually fly? Unlike a lot of spaceships that just sort of lift off and fly, these have an incredible realism to them. Even though some of the spaceships are the size of skyscrapers, others are two-seater vehicles. Brown also made a pretty bold claim in regards to Villeneuve's ambitions, especially seeing that Dune is a movie that even the great Alejandro Jodorowsky tried and failed to make in the 1970s, and David Lynch notoriously bombed with in 1984. I think that Denis Villeneuve is doing what's called a seminal version of this story. I don't think it will be topped, to be perfectly honest, Brown said. The sheer scale of it is going to be daunting, but I do think it's going to be extremely special. I heard in the paper the other day that they're looking at the new Lord of the Rings, and I firmly believe that. I think it's going to be up there with those kinds of films, really. Brown also said that as Villeneuve plans to split Dune into two films, the film, for all intents and purposes for us, was complete last year. In the prior interview, cinematographer Greg Fraser assured that the first movie, debuting in December, will feel like a standalone complete film. So a couple of things I want to talk about in that interview right there was Dune is something that frequently gets compared to Lord of the Rings, for good reason. Both are extremely well done as far as world building goes, and they're just both really good stories that have stood the test of time. And there's no reason why a Dune movie couldn't be epic like the Lord of the Rings films that came out all those years ago. Because I don't know, if people weren't around back then, I remember those movies came out, they were a huge deal. They were a big deal. They were like the Star Wars of their day, those Lord of the Rings films. So I'm a huge Dune fan, but I'm just a casual Lord of the Rings fan. I wouldn't call myself a diehard Lord of the Rings fan. Like, I have the movies on DVD, just the regular cuts. I don't have the extended editions or anything like that. And I've read the Lord of the Rings books. But it took me a long time to get around to actually reading the books. But I remember when the movies came out, I was friends with some people who were big fans of Lord of the Rings, and it was like really, really, their excitement was infectious. And I remember going to see them, and even though I wasn't a huge Lord of the Rings fan, I was really into those movies when I saw them. I thought they were really well done. I really liked them. And the books, they were on my reading list to read them. It was just one of those books I felt like you had to read, Lord of the Rings, if you're into science fiction and fantasy. I just feel like there's certain books you should read, and that's one of them. But it took me almost 20 years to get around to reading Lord of the Rings. And I read them last year. And the reason being is because I wanted to find like a really good edition of those books. I just never liked any of the editions that you saw in any of the bookstores. And I know that seems kind of strange, but it's true. But finally, I found a really nice box set of the Lord of the Rings books from the Folio Society. So that's what I ended up buying, and that's what I read. And Dune is up there too. But Dune, I'm a huge fan of Dune. Been a huge fan of Dune for a very long time. And now the other thing I wanted to talk about that's mentioned in that interview is the size of the spaceships. Because that's something, everyone talks about the casting and the sandworms and all that kind of stuff, but no one's talking about, there has been talk about the ornithopters and stuff, but what kind of spacecraft are we going to see in this film? Because you have to think, we've seen like little glimpses of flying things in that one shot of Paul Atreides on the beach, but you have to think about what kind of spaceships do the House Atreides have? What kind of starships do they have? And what are the Guild Highliners going to look like? Because they'd have to be bigger than a skyscraper. So I'm thinking the skyscraper size ships, that's just probably like the regular ships of the Atreides that's going to bring all the house to Dune, and then those humongous skyscraper type ships will just park inside of an even more massive Guild Highliner. What is that going to look like on screen? How are they going to make that look? Because in the David Lynch version, like, I didn't mind those design wise. They looked really big, but they were just like a big long cylinder. They kind of did the same thing in the 2000 miniseries too. They made them look a little bit different, but still they were like a large cylinder. And to my knowledge, or to my memory, I know it's not in the first book, but Frank Herbert doesn't describe what a Guild Highliner is. He just says, well, it's a really big ship. So big that all of the Atreides ships would only occupy one small corner of this thing. It's so massive. So I'd be curious to see how is that going to look on screen. So, pretty cool interview. And, Lord of the Rings and Dune, they always compare because, they're both fantastic stories that just stood the test of time. And even Arthur C. Clarke, his praise of Dune, he said, the only thing comparable to it is Lord of the Rings. So that's everything I got to say in this video. Let me know what you think in the comments section, and I will see you at the next one. I'd like to say thank you to all of my subscribers. I appreciate you all in helping this channel grow. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Also, don't forget to hit the bell icon so you'll be notified when new videos are uploaded.